Hey, it is Browns week. It's not Browns week, it's Deshaun Watson week, but let's call it Browns week so we can pretend that the last 2 years didn't happen. Browns just have some quarterback that was gone for some reason, and now he's coming onto an offense that's actually playing really well with Jacoby Brissett as their quarterback, but Deshaun Watson presumably is better. They feel like maybe they can go on some miracle run to the playoffs. I don't want that to happen. If the Texans win one more game this season, please let it be this one. If you don't know the Deshaun Watson story, just Google it and have a fun 7 hours trying to sort that mess out. Lovie was kind of chippy in the press conference on Sunday following the Dolphins game. Today, on Monday, he seemed to be a little bit more ready to move forward onto the Browns, as the kids used to say, and so am I. I'm going to respond to some of the things Lovie says. If you see a Texans backdrop behind me at any point, that's me pretending to be a head coach and answer the question that Lovie was asked. This is my dress rehearsal to Jeff Saturday my way into a head coaching position at some point. I'm going to give a great pep talk to an NFL owner, possibly after a couple beverages, and convince him that I'm the guy. So I want to start now. Get ready for it. I'd say 2024, we're going to go for it. You, me, maybe Sean Pendergast or Mike Meltzer, we're going to get a head coaching and GM job in the NFL despite having zero qualifications. Let's roll the Lovie.
You know, for us yesterday, we stunk up the place in the first half. And second half, we did some things better. Didn't do enough to win the football game. Defensively, we played, we were playing really bad run defense, but last two games we played better, and we played better on that game.
I'll give him that, and that's something that Sean Pendergast and I think disagree on a little bit. I don't think that it was looking for silver linings to say that the Texans improved in the run defense on Sunday. It wasn't perfect, and obviously the Dolphins weren't even really trying to run the ball all that hard, but I thought that the linebackers as a group have improved versus the run. They're coming up, they're taking on blocks, they understand where their run fits are better. I think the defensive linemen are playing to their own abilities more so than they used to be. They're not trying to be Warren Sapp or some defensive lineman that they're not. They're anchoring in at times. So I'll give them that. And I think also part of why people were upset yesterday was the tone was just different. It was almost like a demanding of respect for playing well in the second half. I thought they did a pretty good job versus the run for most of the day. They ended up holding Wilson to 2 point whatever yards per carry, which is a good effort.
We realize, who's coming to town, and I'm talking about the football team that's coming into town and what all that brings with us. We need a win, so things don't go well. You want to get back home, of course, and play.
He seems kind of depressed, and now I feel sympathy for him, and I'm feeling bad for being so angry this morning, except that that's what you do in football. You get angry about stuff. So that's it. My grieving for myself is over. I don't feel bad about being angry this morning. That's what you do as a football fan.
Burkhead was in a concussion protocol. Chris Harris went out with a shoulder injury.
That's Christian Harris, one of the linebackers that I think has been playing a lot better. That's going to stink if his development is stymied somewhat.
Derek Stingley still has a mild hamstring.
Derek Stingley, what was the issue with Derek Stingley? It was injuries. You look at Sauce Gardner, hey, he didn't play in the SEC. Derek Stingley played in the SEC, but he's been injured. But yeah, he played in the SEC, but now he's
getting
injured.
Better. Take your question. And I assume playing quarterback is a lot like riding a bike. Comes back to you fairly quick. I know he's been practicing with them. They've been playing good football. Adding Deshaun, of course, will make them that much better. But they beat a good Tampa team yesterday. They played good football throughout. Balanced attack offensively. Have a running game, excellent running backs. Superstars on the defensive side of the ball. That'll be a big test for us.
Okay. So a couple things here. One, It's a different system than Deshaun Watson has played in. It's a Kubiak-Shanahan style system, and that's what we had always wondered and maybe hoped, was that some kind of Shanahan system would come in here and Deshaun Watson would be able to utilize his legs as part of the play action, the boot game, all that stuff. Not to mention that system is just time and time again. It gets the absolute most out of quarterbacks. They have that now with Deshaun. The one thing I would say is that it's not always such an easy and smooth turnover. If you look at like Matt Ryan in his first year with Kyle Shanahan, you look at Aaron Rodgers in his first year with LaFleur. I know they won a lot of games, but the offense wasn't what it would become over the next several years. So it's an offense that needs reps. It's a repetition-based offense. I remember talking to Gary Kubiak about it, and and obviously it's changed, and each guy puts his own flavor on it, but so much of it has to do with making the play action and making the run game look exactly the same. There's a deceptive element there, and that takes reps. That takes time. That takes timing, and Deshaun doesn't have all those things. And meanwhile, the Cleveland offense has been operating pretty well with Jacoby Brissett. It's hard to think that Deshaun's going to come in and somehow improve on it immediately. It's still a better football team than the Texans, obviously, but the Browns' defense is something that's an issue. My biggest concern in this game is going to be Nick Chubb, the running back, because that Texans run defense, though I think it has improved, it's got some work to do. I can't trust that run defense just yet, especially if the pass defense continues to be an issue. And Tua Tagovailoa throws for almost 300 yards in less than 3/4 of action. That's a lot of yardage.
Is this just another example of you guys looking forward and not looking to the past and just trying to move on from kind of everything?
Yeah, I think this will probably be the final piece to that story a little bit, where Sean's back, he's playing football, and the way things go, I mean, his first game would be back down here. What a great opportunity for us too. Okay,
this is where I think Christy Rican did a nice thing for Lovie, which is basically she answered the question for him. Let me put on my coaching hat real quick. Look, in this game, in this NFL, guys move, guys change situations, and they take with them and they bring with them all different types of drama. We're not unaccustomed to dealing with drama. This is and was a unique type of drama, and certainly not one that we want to relive again. But this is a football team that we're facing that has a very good quarterback, and that's our concern right now. A lot of guys here weren't a part of that situation, didn't play with Deshaun. Some guys here did, but you face that every week. This is a very unique brand of it, but you face it every week, and we just try to focus in, like you said, on the football and the football itself. Okay, back to Lovie.
This year have been susceptible to the rush a bit. When you look at Dameon Pierce in the last couple of games, reviewing the film, what things can y'all fix going into this game, the run game?
Well, as far as fixing, I talked about, we had some just, great plays by them, but, some of it is pretty basic. I mean, the running game is about one-on-one blocking up front first. It's about that, man on man. We've done that for the majority of the season. Last couple of weeks, we've kind of lost that. We got to get it back, and, better technique, better want to, and it's a must as much as anything. So, but we're not going to abandon the run. Everybody has to still be able to run the football. We just got to do it better.
One thing I'm a little bit dismayed about is the fact that, as Lovie mentioned, guys are just losing one-on-one battles at times. I'd love to think that it was some kind of a scheme thing, but I think that inferior offensive linemen, as the year goes on, tend to become more inferior. And the guys who are good, they're good for a reason. Those guys get stronger as the year goes on. It's not the physical beating that it used to be. And guys that are physically dominant at the beginning of the season, if they take care of themselves, they're just as physically dominant. Meanwhile, the guys that don't know how to take care of themselves and don't know how to play good football and don't get better as the year goes along, the gap becomes that much larger. And I'm afraid that's what's happening right now. I don't care about the wins and losses. I do care about the guys who get manhandled. that just being physically dominated, especially as a first-round pick or a free agent pickup, or Quesenberry, whose family I admire greatly, that's disheartening. And there were some just genuine ass whoopings the last few weeks on that interior offensive line.
You know, I talk a little bit about the development. Yeah, we want Kenyon to develop, but you're just trying to, our plan going in is just, what do we think gives us the best chance to have a successful play? And if the option that we've been going with, we feel like isn't working as well, you have to look at other options.
Okay, let me put my press conference hat on again, or like Lovie, I will go hatless on this one. Am I concerned about developing Kenyon Green? Of course I am. Lovie says Kenyon. Am I concerned about developing Kenyon Green? Of course I am. But we have other guys out there that need to develop as well, and we have an obligation to them. And if a guy isn't able to get the job done, we need to try to get guys who are going to do a better job in there and help develop Dameon Pierce. Help develop either Kyle Allen or Davis Mills. Help the guys on the offensive line next to Kenyon Green. And this is a balance you're always trying to find. It's hard because we believe in Kenyon's upside, but we also have to be concerned about everybody else as well as the welfare of the team. And right now, just as it is with Davis Mills, it might be time to just step back a little bit, observe, reflect, think about what you need to do the next time you go in there and how you can do it better.
Coach, you talk about the positives with this team a lot, but you're going into the third season where the team will finish under 500. You could see the big picture as far as the rebuild is concerned. But what about for the fans who can't see that, and from week to week, you know, they have questions about where this franchise is headed? What do you tell them?
That's a hard question to answer as a football coach, because you're in pep rally mode there, and you're trying to give a pep rally to fans who aren't in the room, by the way. At least if you have a pep rally with a bunch of liquored up college students, they're pretty easy to get going if you say the right things. Speaking to a group of incredibly sober journalists, 90% sober journalists, in a very quiet auditorium about how to get pumped up for your football team that's currently 1-9. This is tough, and I've got no advice for Lovie on this one. I want to see. I'm curious how he handles this. He's had questions like this before, but this is already a bit of a somber tone to this press conference. Take it away, Lovie. I'm very eager to see.
I'm the same thing I'm telling the team and everybody else. The history behind, we can't go there. I mean, we understand. The fans that have been around a long period of time. For us, we're trying to build. It's a process that you can't skip a step. And we're not there yet. It's what we're telling them, but we're going to get there. And we work extremely hard each day to try to make that happen. I just don't think it does a lot of good to talk about some of the good things we're doing. Know what the record is. We have one win. And we need to get better in all areas, and I'm telling the fans, that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, I think that was good. The way he said that was, it doesn't do any good to talk about the positives, or I think that he understands some of people's objections yesterday, including my own, were that at the end of a really bad performance like that, don't try to shame me into thinking about the positives. People are miserable after a game. We come in on a Monday morning, and even after a team like the Texans that's lost as many games as it has, and everybody knows who they are right now, people still get really upset and irrational after a loss. So they just don't necessarily want to hear about the positives. There's a time, and it's a matter of balancing it. And there's not much more Lovie can say about it. I can't crush him for anything that he says or doesn't say to the fans right now. Again, in a very, very kind of sober interview room.
Game in a really long time, and he comes in, he has the struggles that he had. Do you worry about his confidence? And if so, is there anything you can do to try to make sure that doesn't become an issue?
No, because I think you have to, once you play, as you mentioned, he hadn't played a whole lot in a period of time. I think we have to assume that it's going to take a while. I mean, when I say a while, I mean the first game normally you don't sit out. Hopefully that'll be the case with Deshaun too.
Okay, the confidence question. I'm always curious about that one, because I think if you're talking about a young player, rookie player, a second-year player, but even not that much, I don't want to have to worry about hurting a young quarterback's confidence. I don't know many quarterbacks who are worthy of the quarterback position who have a hard time bolstering their own confidence. Usually the good quarterbacks, it's a matter of trying to tamp it down a little bit. They're a little too bold. There's an old saying with pilots, there are no old, bold pilots, because at some point along the way, if you take too many risks, you're going to get crushed and you're going to crash. And I think with quarterbacks, a lot of times, there are extreme examples where guys just, they got away with it back in the day, but I don't know if Brett Favre would get away with his attitude these days. Talking about on the field attitude. Off the field attitude, he's not getting away with it currently. So I think that I don't worry about Kyle Allen's confidence. Frankly, I don't really want to worry about Davis Mills' confidence because we just saw the example with Tua Tagovailoa, who was put through the ringer, had Deshaun Watson trades dangled out in front of him. Ryan Fitzpatrick's in. Tua's the starter. We're going to bring Ryan Fitzpatrick in to finish this game. Like all the things that could have destroyed a young man's confidence, Tua Tagovailoa, because he's capable of being a good NFL quarterback, had the mental fortitude to see his own way through that. So, long story short, Lovie did a better job with this than me. I don't worry about Kyle Allen's confidence. I don't worry about Davis Mills' confidence. I don't worry about Sam Darnold's confidence. I don't worry about Zach Wilson's confidence. If they get too frazzled by a little bit of maltreatment, then screw them. Screw them all to hell. You can go work a real job for the rest of your life. Damn it, tough it up.
When you haven't played in a long period of time, there is some rust and some things that that's why starting off, Kyle was playing better football in the second half than he played in the first.
Okay, one quick thing about that, the rust, because this has been a theme so far with Deshaun coming here this week. What will we worry about with the rust? Think about Mike Vick, guy who had legal troubles of his own back in 2006. He ended up going to jail. He had last played on December 31st, 2006 as a quarterback. He lost the game 24-17. He threw 57% of his passes for 81 yards. I'm guessing he got injured or something in that game, or they just took him out as the last game of the year. So he didn't end up playing quarterback as a starter again, because remember, that first year he came back with Philadelphia, he was a wide receiver. So he didn't play a bunch of games. He ended up in that. So in 2006, he played on December 31st of 2006, came back, played receiver in 2009. 3 years later, 2.5 years later, he had about 10 attempts as a passer in that season. Came back in 2010, September of 2010, almost 4 years later. In his first game, he was 16-24, 66.67% completion for 175 yards. Certainly nothing to write home about, but a 101 quarterback rating. I think Andy Reid probably took it easy on him. And lo and behold, next week he throws for 284 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 108 quarterback rating. Week after that, 119 quarterback rating, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. So he did all right. He got it back pretty quickly, and that was after almost a 4-year layoff. I don't think Deshaun's rust per se is going to be an issue. I wonder more just about him getting good in that offense, and it's an offense that's already been performing well. They're not the weakness or the potential for victory there. I think the Texans are going to struggle versus the Cleveland offense, whether it's Jacoby Brissett or Deshaun Watson. The thing that would really, really just suck is if Deshaun Watson has a vintage game. If this goes down as like one of Deshaun Watson's best games ever, it's going to be tough, and yet at the same time, it's just such a unique and weird situation. Very few people in Houston feel like they should have held on to Deshaun Watson or kept him. It's been a drama. It's been a drama from the time he requested a trade on into what we'll see on Sunday. In a lot of ways, this almost feels like, okay, at least, as Lovie alluded to earlier, at least it's kind of all over. Maybe this is the last chapter. But I was surly as hell after the game on Sunday. I was upset with the way Lovie handled the press conference. I was actually going to come on here today and do like a little bit of a reaction, a little bit of that role playing, and give Lovie better things to say. But I'm over it. It's on to Houston. But the Browns. What would Belichick say if we're on to the Browns? We're on to the Browns. On to the Browns, on to Deshaun Watson, on to Nick Chubb, Von Miller, likely not playing, on to Von Chubb. There we go.
The concerned about the slump that the sophomore class has been in? Because in addition to Davis Mills, Brevin Jordan and Garrett Wallow was 2 healthy scratches on yesterday.
I mean, the sophomore class, freshman class, I mean, just us in general. We can't let there be a slump. I mean, we know what our record is, but when you're where we are right now, it's just about how do you get the bad taste out of your mouth, and that's playing another game. And this is a great opportunity that we have.
All right, I will talk about the sophomore slump. I do feel like we're seeing a sophomore slump out of a couple of these guys. I think with Brevin Jordan is a disappointment so far. He's been a healthy scratch as Cody Johnson. Cody with a T. Good dude. Cody Johnson just referenced there. It's been a disappointment. We've all had high hopes for Brevin Jordan. I think it's important to remember that he is a 5th round pick, and he's not nearly as big as I think some people thought he was. He's a muscular dude. He's thick, but he's 6'3", 245. Not a big guy at all. So if you're going to be that size as a tight end in the modern NFL, and if they're going to use you split out, you better be really good at route running. You better be really slippery and fast. Even if you're not 40-time fast or what have you, you better be fast on the field, and he just hasn't shown that yet. He was a 5th-round pick, and I think sometimes we fall in love with these guys who are big names or intriguing prospects in college, and when your team takes them in the 5th round, you think, look at that. We got a 1st-rounder in the 5th round, and then you continue to psychologically treat him like he's a 1st-rounder, and you're devastated when he doesn't work out. Because I'm smart, and I thought it was like getting a 2nd-rounder at least. We know that it doesn't work that way. So it's a disappointment, but it's not one that I think is going to keep me up at night worrying about Nick Caserio. If Kenyon Green doesn't work out, especially when you could have had a guy like Jordan Davis or a few other guys right there. Kyle Hamilton, who's played a lot better as of late. He didn't have a great start to the season, but Kyle Hamilton, to not take those guys when you've got a crack at them, and then to take a guy like Kenyon Green if he doesn't work out, yeah, I'm going to be upset about that. Christian Harris, I think, has actually been the opposite of a he's a rookie. I apologize. As far as sophomore slump goes, we would have to think about Nico Collins. I don't know if he's taken a step back. Let's look at statistically with Nico Collins. Nico. All right, Nico Collins in the last 4 games. Let's go in the last 5 games. Since the Chargers game in which he had 82 yards, he had 65 yards, 33 yards, 49 yards, 48 yards, 44 yards. When you start talking about a guy trying to crack the 50 mark, that's not what you want in a guy that you hope had promise. So, yeah, this is the part that's concerning to me, which is, yes, the Texans are going to lose a lot of games, but there's a young core of players, a nucleus that you hope is here in 2-3 years. God, please don't let it be 4 years, when the Texans turn it around and they're hopefully really competitive again. And right now, we're not necessarily seeing that as much out of the 1st or 2nd year guys. I think we're seeing potential, and I still feel relatively positive about most guys. But I think you also need to remember that these 2nd year guys were 3rd round and later. And your chances of making it as a 3rd rounder are about 1 in 3 or so, give or take, to make it as an everyday starter, a consistent starter. Look, it's a big week. Deshaun Watson, kind of a big deal around these parts, and I'm going to be here for you. I'm gunning for the Browns. They think they have a chance at the playoffs. Now, if Deshaun goes on some miracle run, I think this is one thing that you, me, and Roger Goodell can be aligned in for one of the few times in our lives. We don't want that. We don't want Deshaun and the Cleveland Browns going on some kind of miracle run and having Deshaun be the face of the Super Bowl in American football as Roger tries to spread out into all corners of the earth. So join hands, you, me, and Roger. We can hold hands and dance a Yule dance around the Christmas tree with tidings and elves and all that Christmassy stuff.